Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I tried to start this an hour ago, and there's a particular weird person that's part of the music industry with the owner of the house here, and he even said it herself that she's doesn't have all her screws in. For some reason, she left her phone outside in the front, but since there's so many people that are constantly trying to monitor me, to each his own. You shouldn't leave your stuff around here, especially on somebody else's property. So she just came back and went all the way around the house, like she has complete like free access. And I told him, I was like, well, why does she was here at like 3:30 in the morning. I mentioned that in another video that I might post, but 3:30 in the morning, and I was going to work at 3:30. So I left a little earlier. I left at like 3:12. And she was outside and she was like, "Oh, hi, I was told all about you, like how you doing?" And I was like, I'm going to work right now." And then I was like, "Can I help you? Does he know you're here at his house?" And she's like, "Oh, I was just in the backyard in the pool." And I was like, he's trying to fix the pool right now, because at the time he was trying to fix the motor, and then so that he could get algae and all the buildup of dirt out of it. And I had just talked to him like literally the day before. So I was like, "What are you talking about? You're in his pool." Like, she's a little, I don't know. Anyway, so she just left, but for some reason she left her phone here and she came back for it. But guess you're not getting it back. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about my family and my upbringing, just because I'm not going to demonize them. I loved my family, and I think that's why the betrayal was so hard, because I do still love my family. But I have definitely compartmentalized a lot of the pain, because it's just, it happened, it is what it is. I can't change it, so all I can do is accept it and move on from that. But growing up, I was born in North Carolina at Fort Bragg, supposedly. I think now it's called Fort Liberty, and they moved it. It was in Cumberland County, Fayetteville, North Carolina. And after I was born, we weren't there long, probably like 6 months or something. And then we moved to, I think, Louisiana or something. And then we moved again to Michigan, Detroit, and that's where Julie was born. And then after that, we stayed three years. That's usually 3 to 4. Yeah, 3 to 4 years was the maximum amount that we stayed in one location. And so we lived in a beautiful 2-story house. That's where I really remember. I don't remember anything before that. But I do remember, so that was when I was 4, was when we got to Detroit, Michigan. And I remember some really weird dreams pertaining to some incest, but I remember I had one really weird dream of like a baby, but I don't really want to go into it. But aside from that peculiar dream, like, I mean, we had fun. My parents always put me in freaking zebra crap. It almost looks like this is zebra, but it's more tie-dye. But my mom always put me in zebra crap, and I always hated it. It's like, I'm not a zebra. I'm not this animal, And all the rest of my siblings were like in normal colors, And I was just like, how come they got normal colors? Like, I think my older sister was in red, my brother was in blue, I was in that, and then I think my little sister was also in red or something. And I was just like, why am I the one in the zebra thing? Like, why am I so different? But no, I remember playing in the snow with my brother, making snowmen, fighting a lot, like children do. I shared a room with my brother until a certain age. I can't really recall. Probably around when he was hitting puberty. Probably around like we shared a room until I think we got to Germany. So after Detroit, Michigan, we moved to Germany. So I got to spend time with my oma and my opa, my grandparents, until, before they died, which was nice. My my Oma, she died actually on my mother's birthday. I believe when I was 9. So Julie had to have been 5. So that was 1995. And because Julie was born in 1990, so she went with the years. So every time I would think of, like a pivot point, I would always think of Julie's age because that was the easiest age. But basically, she so my Oma, she was Jewish, and she had beautiful curly brown hair like me. But she spoke only German, so I couldn't really speak with her. But I was also so small anyway. And I know Soran married my mother's youngest sister, so my aunt Tina. And Aunt Angie was, to the best of my knowledge, she wasn't married at all. And she had 3 children. I don't know when she had my cousin that is a woman. I do not know her name. She lives in Greece. She speaks only Greek. And then my cousin Gary. And also she had one other child. And supposedly it was an African American boy. I can't remember his name. My mother was very attached to him. She told me the story. We would sit, when I was between 16 and 20 years old, we would sit on Saturdays, and she would drink her coffee, and I'd drink my tea or coffee, depending on what stage of my life I was in, or if I had an exam to do or something. And my mom would tell me all the stories growing up with Aunt Angie, and how selfish she was, how forceful she was. She's literally a replica of my older sister. Like, my mother's relation, and my mother was a middle child. So my mother my grandmother had 3 daughters. So my youngest aunt, Aunt Tina, my mother, and then Aunt Angie. And my mother had 4 daughters, but 3 with my father, and we all grew up together. So my little sister, me, and then my older sister. And my older sister and I had identical relationships as what my mother had with her older sister, which I just found fascinating. And then, I'm a middle child, my mother's a middle child. I think that's what had us resonate so well together. But my grandmother, she died. She was born December 17th, and she died after she turned 64. She died the next day, which was my mother's birthday, December 18th. So for the rest of my mother's life, it haunted her. It broke her heart, And my grandfather died a year prior, so it was hard. I know it was so hard on my mom, and I know it was hard on us. When Oma died, it was really hard on me. My mom got me a book called Emma Says Goodbye so that I could cope with losing my grandmother. And then shortly after, we moved to California. Now, going back, like I said, my aunt, Angie, she had an additional son, who I believe was her first child, and he was black. He was mixed, like me. And he mysteriously died. And that's what my mother was talking to me about during those times that we would spend time together at the table. He died under mysterious complications. My mother found him dead in his crib. Aunt Angie was like, I don't know what happened. But considering that they probably suffocated my mother, I think that's what my aunt did to her son. I think he was only like 2. Maybe the oldest 4. I think he was 2. So, and that broke my mother's heart. She was so angry. That was a hatred she couldn't escape from toward her sister. And I remember that very much. Now, That might be what resonates with a lot of you guys talking about the cold case comments. You know, there's been a lot of monitoring spirits and everything out here, but I also think it's a lot of federal and CIA that are observing me with possible cloaked technology. And I know that sounds really crazy, but I'm going to research it more. But I do remember like 10 years ago or somewhere around there, there was this commercial of this car and it drove up and it was like, oh, new technology, blah, blah, blah. And that was the only commercial. And then we never heard anything more about it, but it had multiple mirrors on it. And what it would do is it would put the mirrors in a particular manner so that it literally camouflaged the entire vehicle. And I definitely believe that because of the fact that we have nanotechnology, you could easily, microscopically create those so that you have a seamless mirror fabric that could do that. And I definitely do believe that that is high potential because, my last video, I'll put it up anyway. I heard somebody walking up and then they stopped and then I heard the push on the door because these doors are crap. Like you can hear them and everything. And you can hear if somebody pushes on them and everything. And I was like, what the hell? And there's no wind. There's absolutely no wind right now. So, I definitely do think that the technology exists. And again, it's something that they're not telling us. But I did want to bring that up about that cold case that a couple of you guys were talking about. But going back to my family, when we were in Germany, I remember getting bullied by a couple of German kids. So we were in a 2-story house that had a basement. Me and my brother spent a lot of time in the basement, and so did my older sister because that's where her room was. And we knew another family. I remember Joshua was one of the boys. It was 2 boys, Joshua and another boy, and I can't remember him. The other boy was around my brother's age, so they would hang out a lot. And, I'm sorry, that was Joshua. Joshua and my brother Justin would hang out a lot. We're all J's, by the way. Juliana, Jacqueline, Justin, Jessica, Jim, my father, Yuta, my mother, but her name is spelled J-U-T-T-A. And then my father had I had a half brother, and my father's first son named Jason, but he died in 2003. I still don't know how, but I definitely am going to look into that now. But the only one that's the oddball is my mother's daughter, my half-sister, Alexandra. Anyway. So, so in Germany, like, I remember getting bullied by these German kids, and I remember my brother came to the rescue, and my older sister would come to the rescue, and if me and my brother had a fight, my older sister always protected me. So I think we really genuinely had a very normal upbringing, especially with 4 kids, and it was very structured. My mother, she would stay at home, she cooked, she gave us a lot of structure when we were going to go to school, blah, 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 especially in Germany, because it was like an hour or 2 hour, I think it was an hour bus ride from where we lived. We lived in a little 2-street town. It was just 2 streets. It was one street that came into the little town. You had a little church, a couple of houses, and then it went back out somewhere else. And then you had another street went straight up, and then it went out there was a dirt road that went out to a ranch. Like there was a horse ranch, and then there was other farming and stuff. And then you keep going up, and then you literally got to our house, and right across from our house was our only neighbor. And they had a boy. His name was Christian, so Christian. And if you go farther up the street, it was a cemetery. And I remember I spent a lot of time at that cemetery. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. It was very peaceful. It was like everybody that died there was at peace, and it was very nice to be at. And then if you continue going up, then you can go up hills, and you can see all of the farmland that people are using and everything. And right behind our house was a cornfield. And so we still had a backyard, but the funny thing was when the cornfield was down, we would just run all the way to the playground that was kind of on that dirt road between the horse ranch and that other. It was like a dark, like alchemy castle kind of place, and they had this mean Rottweiler that even if that dog was all the way next to the house, it was a very, very large property, probably a good football field long from their actual doorstep to the beginning of the gate. And I remember that dog, if he saw anybody, and then he would just run, and he would literally choke himself because they had him on a leash. They would literally choke himself trying to get to you. Like, he was vile. Like, I mean, talk about a guard dog, Anyway. So, that's how I actually broke 3 of my teeth. My brother and I went with my dad on a bike ride when I was 9 years old. And I won, but in exchange, I lost 3 of my teeth. Like, I ate dirt hardcore. My bike hit a rock, and I went straight flat into it. And I remember the only thing I thought was, Mommy's gonna kill me. Like, I didn't even care that I tasted blood or anything. I didn't care. I didn't feel my teeth. I was just, Mommy's gonna kill me. That's all I worried about. Oh man, she was so angry. She was angry at my father. She was angry at me. She was like, I told you not to bring her, and didn't. My mom was so protective over me, and I was just like, no, let's go everywhere. She used to call me her little butterfly. But yeah, me and my brother we were literally inseparable most of the time. And I think it was just because my older sister, she's 6 years older than me. My brother's 2.5 years older than me. So he and I were closest in age. So I had to be the one that he played around with, right? Because my older sister she was always just in a different age group, so I could never really relate. And I think that's really what happened with our relationship. We never could bond. But I do remember one time when my mom, she was in the hospital with Julie, and she had just given birth because my father had stayed home with the rest of us, and she called the house, and I remember, this is a story my mother told me. I remember Jessica answered, and Jess was I was 4, so Jess was 10. And my mom was like, where's your father? And Jess was like, oh, he's watching TV. She's like, well, and I was 4 years old, okay, and my brother was 6. And so my mother's like, well, where's, what's going on? And she's like, oh, well, I fed Jackie and Justin and me, and I made some hot dogs because Daddy didn't want to. And he literally didn't give a crap. Like, he gave the responsibility to my older sister. And my older sister was very responsible for us. Like, she really, 10 years old, my older sister had such a capacity, very responsible, very organized, very creative. Oh my God, she could paint beautiful paintings. And I remember the one time that I saw her cry. She had painted, it was a project, and I think she was 16, so I was like 10. And it was a project she had to do for school. And I remember she was like, it doesn't look anything like me, and she was just crying. She was so frustrated and upset, and to me, it looked just like her. It was so beautiful. Like, Jess had such a fervor, and she's an Aries, but she had such fire. I mean, her personality already demonstrates it, but I mean, she just had such fire for determination, for production, and I always looked up to her for that. And so a part of me, wanted to be her like that. And, but I was always a little more sensitive about stuff. Like, I never wanted to go over my boundaries and hurt anybody's feelings. I never wanted to overimpose myself. So if somebody seemed frustrated, I would automatically coil back and just sit and observe, and if they needed to, vent, they vent. If they hated me and talked smack about me, I let them, it hurt my feelings, but I just took it in silence. And my brother, he could draw. Sometimes we would mess with each other, and we would see, can we draw this better? And me and my brother could draw, but my older sister, she could paint. And I tried painting. Once I added color to everything, it just destroyed it. But my parents, when I was like 4 or 5 years old, got me a little mini child piano, and I was banging on that thing forever. And my mom she used to tell me she knew when I was happy and when I was sad, because if I was happy, I'd be singing all the time in the shower, humming da 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 da. And even as I got older, even into high school, she could read me like a book. She really could. She knew me too well. And I would always try to be so rebellious, you don't know me, I know better. She just knew me so well. She knew all of us very well. She just had such a capacity for love. And all of us broke her heart. Me too. But it was more because of separation. She had codependency issues. My dad has codependency issues. My brother didn't. He was he was looking for people that he could use. So that's why he moved to Maryland, because he already extinguished literally all the friends that he and I went to high school together with, all the friends he went to work with out here. He was never liked. He was always, I'm better than you, listen to what I say because I'm the fucking best. And that was always just how he was. Now, my older sister was much more tactful. Much more tactful. She could smile in your face and be like, hi, how you doing today? How you doing today? Yeah, those pants don't look too good on you, but I see why you got them. They're really nice. And anyway, she would insult you with a smile and keep on going. She's a character, man. And I hated that part of her, because she just was ruthless. Absolutely ruthless. But when she showed love, it was love bombing, I guess, but it was so just open. So open. And I had hoped that she could heal from her narcissism, because she was reading about it. She knew what she was. But obviously she couldn't heal. Now, my brother's a sociopath. There's no healing going on there. He's an absolute sociopath. He's a Libra. The funniest part is that I'm an Aquarius, and the signs that I'm supposed to get along with and have relationships with are Libra, Aries, and Gemini. My brother is a Libra. He's a sociopath. My older sister is an Aries. She's a narcissist. Empathic narcissist. My little sister is a Gemini. My little sister and my niece are 3 days apart. They're born 3 days apart. And they both did the exact same thing. They had children, sons, by men that showed them no love and no compassion. But my little sister grew from that, and I partly feel like it was definitely due to having me as an older sister, having people care about her in the family, showing actual emotional empathy. My mother, definitely my mother, Julie couldn't go anywhere without my mom. My mom was that was her baby. I was the forgotten child. My older sister, she's the oldest. My brother, he's the only boy. My little sister, she's the youngest. I'm just that mid kid, But I loved it anyway, because I spent a lot of time to myself, especially after my older sister was kicked out for trying to strangle my mom. I spent a lot of time by myself. A lot of reflection and inner stuff. And I started to have dreams when I was 15. And I would dream of little random stuff, but they all came true. And it would be like, I remember one of them was I was walking in high school, and I was walking to where my choir class was, and I saw these two people, a guy and a girl, and they both, once I looked at them, they both turned and looked at me too. And while we were walking, and we were far away, like probably like a good 20 feet away, and going completely different directions. And while they were walking at Granite Hills High in Apple Valley was where I went to high school, there was a pillar that had separated between us, and we were both looking at each other, especially because I looked at the guy, he looked, but then I looked at the girl, and I was more focused on her. And then I woke up, and I was like, that was a weird dream. I've never seen those people before, whatever. And I went to school that day, and I didn't think anything of it. And I kid you not, like I was talking to a friend, I think it was Amber Coavisto at the time, who, oh, she's a cheating piece of trash. But if she's another one of my so-called childhood friends, she's been lost. Her and Jacob, they were so cute. Jacob Harmon, they were so cute together. They looked like the perfect couple. She cheated on him. She went to his best friend, Jimmy Vasquez. She cheated on him. She went to Matthew Wilshire, I believe is his last name, who ended up being a pro wrestler. Cool beans, bro. Especially when you got your house and you invited me so we could hang out. Anyway, but she was all over the place. She was just cheating little... She looked like a wannabe Marilyn Monroe, but she was an absolute cheater. Anyway. But, yeah, I think I was talking to her, and then I turned, and the exact same scene unfolded. While I was walking, I saw that guy, and I was like, no way. And I looked, and I saw that girl, and she turned, and we just stared at each other again. And I had to stop. And it was like I stopped, and right when I stopped was the same aspect where the pillar separated us, and then they just vanished. Because I really was like, what? Let me see. And I couldn't find them after that. And I was just like, what just happened? And this proceeded to go on until I was 20. And I would have, during this time I would also have 3 reoccurring dreams. Now, 2 of the reoccurring dreams have already come in true. The last one hasn't. And the last one is actually about my death. Now, this reoccurring dream is actually very different because the other reoccurring dreams always happened the same way. And they were of very mundane things. Like me walking into a room and writing something down and putting it wherever and leaving. You know, very mundane things, those 2 dreams. That's why I don't even really recall them. But I do remember something about writing something on my desk. Oh man, that hurts. So, but then I had, I'm not really going to talk about the reoccurring dream of my death. But it still hasn't come to pass, obviously. But I definitely think it had to do with this whole humiliation ritual and initiation process. So anyway, I'll just leave it at that. But I remember astral projecting. I used to always imagine being in the stars and traveling, like literally outside of my body, traveling. And I would travel to right outside the neighborhood off of Pawhuska Road and Central. I think Cahuilla was the road that connected, to Pawhuska and Central. And this is in Apple Valley too, where I grew up in California. And yeah, it was just, I remember astral projecting, and I had a crush on Vegeta, so he was always kind of like my go-to when I wanted to have a partner in my mind. And I even made kids that we had together. Like, I was so in love with Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z. So I'm still in love with him. That's my man. I remember my ex, because he has dark hair and he has kind of the widow's peak too. I told him, I was like, can you be Vegeta for Halloween this year? He looked at me like, I was like, please. I was like, I'll make your outfit. Cosplay is fun. Yeah, we're not gonna go there. So, but yeah, I would astral project. And I remember when there was, and I think I was about 18 when this happened, when they were talking about how scientists and explorers, um, geologists, that's what they're called, where they had dug this hole and it had gone, it was one of the deepest holes at the time. I think I was, what, this was like 2002, 2003. And it was the deepest hole that supposedly we had dug into the earth. And they had put like a microphone to listen to hear what's down there. And it sounded like hell. I remember when they were like, this sounds like hell. And so I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I listened to the audio when they had posted it all online and everything. And it genuinely sounded like people screaming. And I was like, that's crazy. Anyway, so it kind of put me in terror for like a nice good 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You know, I was very susceptible to like horrors. I wasn't good at that. Like suspense, horrors, like gore. It really messed with me for weeks at a time. I'm not built for that stuff. Like, especially not on TV. Like in real life, I had a friend that was shot. He was like 20 feet away from me. He was shot in the head, dead. I can handle stuff like that when it's in real life. I don't know why I can. But when it's like on TV, all this gore popping out people's eyes and cutting, I just, it's not for me. It really makes me uncomfortable. I remember one time I was watching 28 Days Later with my friend Rebecca Becker or something. Anyway, and she was a good friend too for a while. But we had a falling out because of her husband, George. But that's another story, too. So if they said anything about me, they're full of it, too. But anyway, yeah, I remember I was watching 28 Days Later with them. And it was a zombie thing. And I remember the time that zombie grabbed one of the ladies' faces and popped the eyes. I literally couldn't watch the movie anymore. I was sitting in the bathroom by the toilet waiting to puke because I felt it in my stomach. Like, I didn't even see the eyes pop. It was just, the whole scenery just made me like so sick to my stomach. And yeah, I wanted to throw up for like a good 20 minutes. And I was just like, now I'm just gonna not look. You know, if I think it's not it, I'm just gonna not look. But that one really affected me. But yeah, so between 15 and 20, I just had all these weird premonitions and all these weird thoughts. And the last premonition that I had was what really cascaded me into not even wanting to have spirituality anymore. And I never told my parents about these premonitions because I think I tried to tell my mom and she just kind of went, mm-hmm. And that was it. You know, like I told my mom everything. She didn't comment on it or anything. So I just told her and left it at that. And I never told anyone else. But the last premonition I had, I can't remember her name, but this is when I was already I was already 2 years working at Stater Brothers off of Bear Valley Road in Apple Valley. And I remember her name started with a J. It was like Janine or Jenna or Jenai or something like that. And she was sweet. She was a sweet little white girl, straight brown hair, just always smiles, always optimistic, just bringing positivity to the workplace. She was a sweetheart. And she and I didn't really have a relationship. I didn't know where she lived, nothing, you know. I just was like, oh, she's just a sweetheart. I like her. And that was it. And she was 17. And on a Sunday, I woke up after having a dream about her dying. I saw it was a sedan or a truck that she drove. I can't recall right now. But what I do recall is the phone dropped. She tried to get it. She got it. She looked up in shock. And then the next thing, I heard a crash. And I normally don't hear sounds in my dreams. I usually just see things. And it's usually in color. I see things. But sometimes when I see things in black and white, it's more of a feeling. Anyway, so I hear a crash. And the next thing I see is her eyes just staring. And then as the view pans out. She's just laying almost like a cross on the ground. There's a car with the wheel. I think it was a silver car, I can't recall, but I remember the wheel was still turning. She had her phone in her hand, and she was just staring up. And then I see a clock that says 6:45 p.m. And it's a sunset going down. And she died right there at the crossways of Central and Cahuilla, right outside of my neighborhood. And I woke up. And that dream really disturbed me because I knew she was dead. And I was like, no, I just saw her yesterday at work. I was like, whatever, this is just in my head. The next day on Monday, because I didn't work on that Sunday. So the next day on Monday, I went into work after school. And I was like, hey, how's everybody doing? Whatever. And everybody was very somber. And so I finally asked somebody, I said, what's going on? Why is everybody looking like they've seen a ghost? And they were like, well, Jenna or Jenny. I remember it was like a Janine or Janine, something like that. They were like, well, you know her, right? And I said, yeah. I said, yeah, she was here just Saturday, And they're like, well, she died. And I was like, no. And I said, don't tell me. I said, let me tell you. She died in a car accident. And they said, yeah, she did. How'd you know? And I said, don't tell me. Did they find her body looking up? And they're like, well, I don't know that. I said, okay. I said, was it at 6:45 p.m. yesterday? And they looked at me like, the news article said that. Yeah, how'd you know that? And I said, one more thing. Did they say that she died because something about her phone? And I kid you not, my coworker, I can't even remember which coworker this was, literally stepped back from me in horror and terror of me and was like, who the fuck are you? And I said, I dreamt of her death. And they were like, what? And I said, did she die by Central and Cahuilla? And I don't know, but I guess I freaked out this coworker so bad. They just looked at me in absolute terror and horror and walked away. And they literally never talked to me again. So I talked to other coworkers and they corroborated, yes, she died. Cahuilla and Central. She died facing up. They found her body facing up, out of the car, on the road, her phone in her hand, everything, just like my dream. And that dream haunted me. I was 20. And it haunted me because she was 17. I almost felt like I was responsible for her death because I dreamt it. And I cried that night. I was so traumatized. And even though I didn't really fully believe in God, I had already gone through so many different religions. I went through the Mormon religion. I went through non-denominational, Baptist, Catholic. At this time, I hadn't gone through Hindu, I hadn't gone through the Hindu religion or gone to like the mosques or anything yet. But I didn't fully believe in God, but I did pray to God that night, and I said, please God, I was like, I don't want to have these thoughts. I don't want to have these visions. I can't. It will kill me. Like I can't watch people die, And I literally never had another premonition ever again. I had dreams though. I had a lot of dreams, but the dreams were feelings. Like my mother felt absolutely trapped in her marriage with my father. She felt absolutely betrayed. And she had a lot of anger toward him, but she knew she wasn't able to put it out on him because he would beat her. And I would have a lot of dreams of my father's death. I remember I had a dream where my mom was sitting at a table, and it was a very small house. And she looked at me, and it was just me, my mom, and my dad. But my dad wasn't there. It was just she was at the table, the dining table, and I walked up to her, and she just had blood all over her arms and her hands and her face. And she looked absolutely in shock. And I said, "Mommy, you need to wash your hands." And she looked at me like she had seen a ghost. And I said, "Mommy," and she was like, it was like she snapped out of it. And this is a dream, okay? And she said, "I can't do it. I can't do it. I need to get rid of the body." And she kept staring at a room. And so I opened the door, and my father was laying there on the ground, dead. And in the dream, it didn't really specify how he died. But I remember going to my mom and saying, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." And in my dream, I watched myself cut my father's body up, grind it up, and compost it, basically. And that was the end of the dream. And so I remember after I had that dream, I went to my mom and we talked, and sure enough, she had those murderous intents toward my father, And then I told her about my dream. I said, "Mommy, is everything okay with Daddy? I had this dream about you killing him." And I think my mom was like the only one I ever mentioned anything to. I trusted her so much. So anyway, I could ramble on and on about so many different scenarios that I've had in my life. But I don't want to villainize my family, because they weren't villains. They had bad tendencies. And maybe, what breaks my heart is if I would have known that, if they would have told me that I was this chosen one or whatever, I would have immediately ascended to God, just broke down and been like, "Help me manifest happiness for my family. Help me manifest peace in their souls." Like, I already knew my older sister had a lot of underlying difficulty with a lot of things. And I always wanted her to be open with me, and she never was. She always had a facade. And I just was patient. I was just waiting for her to finally be open, and then I could be open with her. And my brother, he didn't want to hear a thing. I remember when he lost a lot of weight, and my mother, she was crying, "He's lost so much weight." This is after he had already broke her heart, and took my nephews from her, and finally, after a year, he let us see them again. But I guess he was on some bread and milk diet, and he lost a lot of weight. And me and my brother, we were already done. At 13, I was like, I don't want shit to do with my brother anymore, so, whatever. And he was also a little incesty. I won't really discuss the weird stuff that we did when we were in Germany, that I didn't realize was weird until now, after I got older. But I think that's why at 13, I just completely cut him off. And he kept trying with me, and I just cut him off, because he really wanted to make me angry, make me feel small, make me feel like nothing. That was like his main goal with everything. He would literally go and play video games with his buddies, and then bring the video game home after he had already learned how to play it, and play me and mock me every time. Treat me like crap every time. Like, you don't even know how. Oh, and then I remember when we were playing Killer Instinct, and I was Orchid, and I forgot what character he was, and I was on the brink of death, and I still didn't know how to play the game, But I guess I finally hit the right combination, and I think I did like a 48 hit combo. He was so sure he was going to beat me. And I remember the look on both of our faces. Like I just did this thing because he was about to do like the last blow to me and kill me. And I just, and all of a sudden, 48 hit combo. And he died. And we both were like, no way. And I looked at him, he looked at me, and I was like, I beat you. You didn't beat me. And then he runs and turns the game off. Like, that's how sort of a loser he always was. If I was about to win, especially when we would play Street Fighter, oh, if I was right about to win with Chun-Li, oh my gosh. You didn't win. The game's off. The biggest sore loser in the galaxy. Like, way worse than Daryl. At least Daryl acted like he had humility. But, I mean, my brother just, he always had to be the best. No matter the cost. And my older sister always wanted to save face. When I went to school and was working on my associates and got my associates, she had to get two. She had to get two associates. When I was working on my bachelor's, she had to go and get two. And she would always, well, you have a better life than me. Like, you got better opportunities than me. Yeah, I didn't try to strangle my mother. That's why your ass got kicked out of the house. And then you wonder, you were in gangs anyway. From like 16, people were throwing rocks into our windows. Oh my God, my mom was like, what are you doing, Jess? You need to cut this crap off. I mean, calling the phone, I'm gonna fuck you up, bitch, while we were eating dinner and stuff. Oh, my mom was not having it. Like, and that's the crap that you were in, Jess. Like, Jesus. So yeah, as we got older, they got worse. And so I just distanced myself. But no matter with my brother, I tried to show him so much empathy. Like I said, when he had lost so much weight, he really did look like skin and bones. And I told my mom, nah, it's fine. I remember I was like, let me drive, Xavier, his oldest son. Because he's literally like, he's like a little, he's like my son. He looks like me, not so much now that he's older, but when he was younger, he literally looked like a spitting image of me and Justin, and I remember I had a picture up and Angel Martinez was like, is that your son? I was like, no, because he looked just like me. He's so precious. He even had eczema just like me. And it wasn't eczema, I found out. I actually have food allergies. But they had told me that I had eczema for like 20 years of my life. My mom, they told her the same thing, but she didn't. She had food allergies, which she never discussed with me until I was like in my 20s. And I was like, I wish you would have told me this so I could have got an allergy test sooner and then I would have never had to be on topical steroids. There's somebody again with their car. I am not even going to waste the energy with this. I can hear the car, but I just don't see it. And then, like I said, I heard somebody at the door. Yeah, now it's leaving. But whatever. I think it's that girl again, because she left her phone here. Anyway, I'm really about to just give her phone to the police. She's a fucking mental case. Anyhow, so yeah, that was pretty much my relationships with my siblings. As they got older, they just got worse. And then I tried to show empathy with my brother when I brought Xavier to him. I remember it broke my heart when I brought Xavier back to his house. After he spent time with me and my mom and my little sister, and Xavier, he held my hand and he was like, I don't want to go home. And I lied to that poor boy. And I said, I know, baby, it's okay. I said, be good for Auntie, okay? I said, this is mommy and daddy, and they love you. And, you know, I told him, I was like, I'll be back tomorrow, okay? You'll see me tomorrow. And I love you, and give me a hug. I wasn't back tomorrow. Broke my heart. He was 4 at this time. I was able to stay in his life until what? He was 9. And Lucian was 7. They used to use me as a jungle gym. I don't know how I dealt with those boys. One on here, one down here, and they both wanted me at the same time to move them around. Oh, man. I love those boys. And Ezekiel's the same way, my little sister's son. Very tall, very sweet kid, very loving. He's born. I always forget. He's born on my grandmother's birthday, I believe, December 17th. And so I told my mom, I said, it's reincarnation, Mommy. You know? There were a lot of interesting facts in our history, you know, that just made me feel like our family was very unique and very fascinating. I never wanted to think that we had skeletons. You know, I kind of knew we did, especially because of the fact that my Aunt Angie murdered her first son because he was black. But I didn't really think like it would be what it is. It's just, again, it's surreal. But in the beginning, no, my family, I had a very good upbringing. I loved my family. You know, if I was molested in my sleep or something, obviously my subconscious knew what was going on, but me, I didn't. I don't remember any of it. But maybe that was the point, so that I could still have a normal life. But I do hope that Justin and Jess and my father find some peace. Gary, I don't give a crap about you. Aunt Tina, I know you know about the cycle. So I'm praying for you. I really am. I know Danny is not a good child. And Alexi, I know Karim is not a good child. And look at Kearney. But Sophion is a good boy. He's a good man. You need to learn to nurture that. That's why he ran away. That's why he was like, I'm just going to focus on college. He did exactly what I was doing. So, this should be an awakening for you, Alexi. And I don't like you either. I never did. You always played the victim with my mother. Where's my mom? Oh, and when you called, where's my mother? She's my mother too. Where's my mother? Well, like I said, I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about growing up with my family. I will miss them. I'll miss the memories that I have of them. Supposedly somebody even did plastic surgery to look like me. I don't know if that was like my older sister or my ex's girl. I don't know who did. But, sorry, I keep hearing sounds over there. But would like to know who did that. That's a little, that's so over the top. I mean, like, and to be honest, my older sister and my little sister, they're 10 years apart, but they look like almost twins. Body wise, face wise, smile, like eyes. The noses are different, but man, like twins. And they look just like my mom. I'm the only one that doesn't. But my brother and I look more like my dad. Now, I literally looked like a spitting image of my father, just in female form. And my brother was a mix of both my father and mother, but my brother and I looked more alike, But that was just interesting, my little sister and my older sister looking so similar. It's very fascinating. Very different temperaments, too. My little sister was always pretty calm until she blew up. Well, I'm going to stop this for now because there's just so many weird activity outside of the house. It's kind of making me really irritated. I'm really thinking about calling the cops. So hopefully you guys have a good day and keep praying. And I'm going to make another video soon about the actual first time I really believed about the gang stalking. My whole targeted individual experience, because this is what all targeted individuals are going through right now. This is definitely not just me experiencing this. This is a lot of people experiencing this. And for all you people that were targeting me, if you're also targeting somebody else so that you can get your $100 a day from the police department under the table, so that you can have somebody drive by and bring you an envelope of money, don't do it. The horrors that I went through, it's not right. And if I'm targeted for this reason, then targeted individuals are also targeted for this reason, in my opinion. That means that all those people that you guys are being told follow them around, or you're hearing these slander and smear campaigns about, are really innocent people that didn't do anything. Like, if somebody says, oh, that's a pedophile or sex offender, go to the sex offender site. Go to the website, it's public knowledge, and see if you can find that person's name. If they're not on there, leave them alone. If somebody says, hey, that person, they're real dangerous, be careful about them. Ask questions, be critical thinkers. What makes them so dangerous? What did they do? Oh, well, here's a video. Oh, because trust me, I'm sure there's videos of me running at people being like, what the fuck, da da da, because people were provoking me. Don't believe everything you see. If you know people are trying to constantly go after somebody, report it. Report it to the police. Like, hey, these people are slandering this person's name. I don't know if they're a prostitute or not, but they talk about this person, this is their name. I mean, I would go into a place and people would come in, oh, is Jacqueline here? Did she come in? Like, no shame. And then when I would come up, be like, why are you asking about me? I wasn't asking about you. I'm like, I'm the only person here, sweetie. I'm the only female here, too. You're asking about me because you saw me come in here. So why are you following me? And what are you doing? Like, really be conscious of this stuff. It's torture. It's beyond torture. It's harassment. Every time we walk out there, because they have surveillance on us, they monitor our walk patterns on our phones, through the health app, the GPS, the location. They use the location app, the Find My Phone. They use the camera to record everything that we're saying, everything we're doing. I'm still human too. I deserve privacy too. I do. And all those other people that you are being told to surveillance and watch, if you haven't seen them do crap, but hang out with their children, visit their friends, and talk about how there's corruption in the government, they're probably fine. They're probably not domestic terrorists. What you are doing is terrorizing people on a domestic level. You actually are the domestic terrorist. This whole creation of monitoring people, whether it's for this spiritual gift or not, is harassment, it's doxing, community doxing. It's wrong. Would you like that if your daughter was community doxed? Would you like that if she was raped in her sleep every night and then she doesn't even know what's going on? So people are laughing at her. She has no idea that those guys just made her, suck that dick and da-da-da-da-da. This is hilarious. Oh, and now everybody can watch as she's being raped. That's not funny. And all you people that thought it was, and now it's not funny anymore because you're getting in trouble. Oh, boo-hoo. I don't find it funny that you're getting in trouble, but you know what? You deserve everything that's happening to you, everything. You want my forgiveness? You want God's forgiveness? God has no forgiveness for that. This world is changing, and the kind of people that you are, this world does not need. You are going to be filtered out. I may not get the retribution that I want in the vision that I see, but, gosh, my nose is just so itchy. But I will shape a better future so that when my children are out there, this doesn't happen to them. They're not going to be targeted. We're not going to have bullies at 5 years old in schools. We're not going to have teachers ignoring it and counselors turning their heads. We're not going to have nurses being paid to kill people just because they get an extra $1,000 on their payroll or something. We're not going to have this. That is not the world I want. And that is not the world that I will shape. Literally, you guys are telling me I am Legion. Do you get that? I am Legion? Well, if I am Legion, I definitely want to shape a better world. I don't want to see this world destroyed. I don't want Gaia destroyed. We've done enough. We've done enough destruction. It's time for rebuilding. So, if I am Legion, we will definitely get a second chance.